April 14th will remain indelible in the minds of most Gambians. This was a day when young Gambians, in the exercise of their constitutional rights, went peacefully into the streets to demonstrate in support of comprehensive electoral reforms, so that the will and the voting intent for our citizens will be respected and honored, and that the process will be with integrity. Unfortunately, in the exercise of their constitutional rights, these young Gambians were brutally attacked, and it ended up in the death of Solo Sunday, who has now become a national icon and a rallying cry for freedom and liberty in our land. Women who were part of this group allegedly were severely tortured, as the court affidavits would indicate, and also raped under the custody of the National Intelligence Agency. I take this opportunity to condemn this heinous crime and demand accountability. And indeed, I assure you, if accountability is not granted today, accountability is not granted under this administration, the Gambian nation shall never forget the sacrifice of Solo Sunday and the sacrifice of the patriotic Gambians who accompanied him in the search for democratic expansion in our land. Accountability is something that Gambians will not forget. All those involved in the murder of our citizens, in their torture, in their disappearances, will indeed account to our people someday, sooner than later. I'd like to express solidarity with Gambians who are marching peacefully, demonstrating their constitutional right and calling for the expansion of the democratic space. I call on my colleagues in the opposition, or the opposition leaders and political parties, to join Gambians in the exercise of their peaceful right to protest and in the exercise of their constitutional right, inalienable right, so that the Gambia will sing with one voice, will march with one voice, will attain our objective of a nation where the rule of law, freedom, democracy, and compassion shall reign. I assure you, fellow Gambians, that from my vantage position, I called upon members of my party, the Gambia Moral Congress, to continue to participate effectively at all public functions that are connected with the events of April 14 and 16 this year, and I'm very grateful to our members for coming out in their numbers to support their fellow citizens in demonstrating and in enforcing their constitutional rights. I call on my fellow party leaders. This is a time for us to make the right decision, to stand by our people and by our nation. This is the time to demonstrate leadership. We together have a historic responsibility, the obligation to ensure the protection, the advocacy, and the defense of the rights of every Gambian, regardless of political party affiliation, regardless of ethnic group, regardless of political class. This is a call that is foisted upon us by history and circumstance, and we must step forward to the plate to assume leadership that our people are crying for. This is why we continue to support our comrades who are under lock and key, Honorable Usainu Dabo, and the rest of the members of the UDP executive. We continue to support calls for the end to impunity. We continue to support calls for transparency, fairness in the judicial process. We continue to call for the right of every Gambian to access the electoral process fairly and equitably without any discrimination, both at home and abroad. In pursuance of this, we continue to conduct our domestic politics in consonance with the principles that are enshrined in our Constitution, and we shall continue to do that. We will not be intimidated.